God. Let's get into a little screen printing Halloween horror story. So a while back when I was doing a Q&A video, somebody asked, what do you do when everything starts to go wrong? And I've been sitting on this one for nearly a year because it deserves its own video. I have the perfect story for this. I'm about to tell you about the absolute worst day I've ever had as a screen printer. And this story would sound completely made up if there wasn't video proof of all of it. And coincidentally enough, this all went down about a week before Halloween last year. But before we get into it, let me just take a few seconds to talk about our sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of killer classes to help you unlock all of your creative potential. If you want to learn how to create killer designs like this one and many of the other ones that we create here, Skillshare is the place to do it, and it only costs you $10 a month. I've been a member for 3 years now, and I've learned everything that I know about Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, all that stuff on Skillshare. And since we're in the spirit of Halloween, there are a ton of Halloween themed classes covering basically every topic so that you can get your spooky on. And since they're sponsoring today's video, the first 1,000 of you guys who click the link down in the description below will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. So check that out. Trust me, it's worth it. All right, let's get into this. So last year leading up to Halloween, I planned on making a limited edition shirt for my brand to be released on Halloween. And at this point in time, my brand was still the main focus and the print shop was kind of a side thing. So I had a lot more time on my hands to kind of experiment and try things, and I figured, let's try a crazy ass 8-color print. And now, being only 9 months or so into printing at this point and not knowing the proper techniques at all to pull this off, this was mistake number one that set off this whole chain reaction of events. The design inspiration was taken from the old Tales from the Crypt comic books, which I was a fan of as a kid. We combined a bit of that style with a bit of our own pretty seamlessly, and in my opinion, I think we nailed it. I was honestly so pumped to do this thing, I went straight to work the second the design was done. I got all my screens ready and started setting up the press, and well, it all went downhill after that. Firstly, I was trying to register this thing for like 4 hours or something like that. It was crazy. It would not even come close to falling in line cleanly. One shirt would be kind of close to being there, the next one would be a mile out, and it just kept going back and forth like this forever, which you could imagine can be insanely frustrating. And there's a few reasons for this. The first one being I was still using those little forward clamps on my press, which work fine for some stuff, but when it comes to a super tight registration, 8-color design, it's definitely not what you want. And fun fact, this fun little event that I had here is the reason that I now have side clamps on my press. Also, out of those 8 colors, I only had one white in there, meaning I was doing a print flash print on my underbase, which is kind of a printing no-no that I used to do for way longer than I care to admit, and I actually never did it again after this. But trying to do tight registration over top of a thick base like that is gonna give you nothing but headaches unless you've got a ton of choke to compensate for it, which in this design, I did not have the option for, nor do I like having a ton of choke on designs because I can see it from a mile away and it doesn't look good. I was also bouncing around between flashing all the colors, flashing certain colors, going wet on wet all the way through, which is a technique I hadn't even tried yet, and just nothing I was doing in that area was right at all. I ended up doing so many damn test prints that I burned through every single junk shirt that I had laying around, and I had no choice but to start printing on the nice fresh new ones that I was supposed to be using for this project just to continue on testing, and I burned through like $300 and something worth of inventory in the process, which was not smart at all on my part, but what can you do? This is where the story starts to get good. Being in full-blown rage mode at this point, I just kept going at this thing because I refused to let it beat me. When I get to a certain level of mad, I'm borderline insane because I will just keep doing the same shit over and over and over again with blinders on and expect the results to change somehow. And while I was angrily hyper-focused on this whole registration thing, I was not paying attention because I started to smell smoke, and I look over and see one of my pallets just flaming up underneath the flash, and we're not talking a little bit either. We're talking full-blown barbecue charred, a big old black bubble just heaving right out of it. I'm not sure what took flight across the shop at this point, but I remember throwing a few things with every ounce of strength that I had in me. I was so mad that I didn't even stop. I went straight back into trying to register this thing for whatever stupid reason was in my head, and I clearly did not learn my lesson about what just happened. Except this time, I had one of those test shirts just kind of balled up sitting on top of one of the other pallets and completely forgot about it. Well, that thing somehow ended up underneath the flash, and as you can imagine, that caught fire really, really quick. In my state of rage, I actually took out my phone to capture the magic before I put it out, and this is why you can see a big brown permanent burn mark in my floor now. And that thing has shown up in different shots and a few videos since then, and some people have mentioned it, like I don't keep the shop so clean anymore, and no, that's not it at all. fire, and an idiot did that. So at this point, I'm 6 or 7 hours into a losing battle and decide I should probably take a break before I crazy murder the next person that tries to talk to me. So I shut everything down and I'm about to leave, and I round the corner to go to the sliding door to start going upstairs and take a step, and splash. I'm just standing there frozen like, what the fuck was that? It had been raining heavily all day, all night leading up to this. And I look down and I'm standing in like an inch of water. Then I open the sliding door and discover a lake forming at the bottom of the basement stairs and under the basement stairs, where I happen to keep a lot of my inventory. All this is underwater. Awesome. This house has never had any sort of a leak before, so I beelined it straight for the dark room, thinking that the hose for the pressure washer, or maybe the washing machine, something sprung a leak and was blasting all over the place. So I run in there to check it out, and I didn't find anything wrong. And that's when I noticed the sump pit overflowing. As it turns out, during all this heavy rain and me dealing with all this other stuff, the sump pump decides to die, and water is now making its way into my basement at an alarming rate. My first thought is maybe I can haul ass, pull this thing out and fix it. Maybe the switch went in it, maybe there's something jammed up, who knows? So I go for that, and since this day just can't get any better, I discovered that the last person who was in that pit stripped the crap out of every single one of those Allen bolts, bolting down the lid to that pit. So now here I am, kneeling in a bunch of water with an angle grinder, cutting slots in these damn things to get them off. Finally get all those things off, get the pump out. The pump is dead, there's no fixing it. Well, it's about 3 or 4 a.m. now, so getting a new pump is completely out of the question, and this is only gonna keep getting worse if I don't try to do something about it. So now, I'm bailing buckets out of this hole with the shop vac for like an hour, trying to make some sort of a difference, trying to make a dent in all this water, and it's filling up just as fast as I'm taking it out of there. Now I just have to accept defeat. Whatever happens is gonna happen. So I got all the boxes off the floor that weren't already ruined by the water, unplugged anything electrical nearby, and just headed upstairs. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck all of you. Fuck you especially. And fuck you, water. I quit. And now for the big finish. I'm upstairs for maybe 5 minutes and I realize, oh, I forgot my iPad downstairs. So I'm gonna run down there and get it. And I'm walking down there barefoot, mind you. I'm walking down the stairs, and the first step that my bare foot hits that wet epoxy floor, my foot slips at full high speed right underneath that little half-inch gap underneath the door and breaks my damn big toe, ripping the toenail off it in the process. And for some bonus points, it got wedged and jammed in there, and I had to yank that thing out. So in like a 12-hour span, I managed to waste a bunch of time, ruin a bunch of inventory, have 2 fires, a flood, the fact that those happened back to back still boggles my mind, ruin a bunch more inventory with said flood, and break my damn big toe. If that's not a bad day at the office, I don't know what is. And I was full-blown straitjacket delirious by the end of this. I feel like this is how it feels to slowly slip into insanity. I've got some kind of a curse or a shit cloud hovering above my head. I just don't understand how things just keep getting worse and worse and worse no matter what they are. Like, I'm literally scared to leave this couch now because whatever I do is probably gonna go wrong. Wheelie, do yourself a favor, stay the fuck away from me for the remainder of the day, please, for your own safety. So what do you do when things get to this point? You have to know when to quit, and quit is actually a bad word for it, but you have to know when to step away, and I should have stepped away once my anger got to the point where it was running the show and I wasn't. I wouldn't have avoided the flooding thing, obviously, that was gonna happen either way, but I would have avoided burning up that pallet, starting that shirt fire, burning through a whole bunch of inventory for no reason, and whatever else shit the bed on me that day. Sometimes you have to step away and put your ego in check, which is something that I have a really hard time doing, but I'm working on it. What happened after I stepped away for a little while? Well, my parents showed up at like 6 o'clock in the morning with their pool pump, and we got all that water out of there, thank you, and we got a new sump pump the second the stores opened, so that was all fixed. And after about 3 or 4 days of not stepping foot in the shop at all, I went back down there and kind of reevaluated my setup, tweaked a few things, and I went back into it and I printed off one successful shirt with that nightmare of a design, and then I tore the press down and stashed that design away, never to be seen again. I had missed the window to print those things for the Halloween release, but there was no way I was gonna let that failure hang over my head. I needed that little victory, so I went down there and I got it. It's just a bummer that I wasn't smart enough to print this in my own size so that I could wear it. But that's my screen printing Halloween horror story. I hope there's some kind of a lesson to be learned from my idiocy, or I hope you at least got a laugh from it. Happy Halloween, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Well, let's get you in there, buddy. You're the star of this channel now. People want to see you more than they want to see me. Just think like dust. Were you in the ceiling again? Oh, you were. I can tell. You're dusty as hell. You know the best thing about making these kind of videos where I'm only kind of shooting myself from here up is I don't have to wear pants. And you might think I'm joking, but